the rhythmic tapping. I was 3 miles down, alone in a tiny metal sphere called the Triton. My ears were filled with the sound of my own panic, shallow, shaky breathing echoing against the steel hull. For the last hour, that sound had been joined by something impossible, a deliberate, rhythmic tapping over the hydrophones, echoing in the black water like a massive clock. At first, I thought it was a damaged propeller or sonar feedback, but then the pattern changed. The taps formed a distinct rhythm, a question, a code. It was too human. I froze, unable to touch the controls. The lights flickered violently, plunging the cabin into darkness. The tapping stopped. Then came a deep, low groan, a vibration that crawled up through the metal and into my bones, as if the ocean itself had sighed. The Triton jerked violently, spinning sideways in the blackness. Something immense had pushed me. I screamed into the MIC, knowing no one was close enough to hear. My name is Callum. I worked alone as a deep-sea research diver, studying fault lines in the benthic zone, the deepest, darkest part of the ocean. The Triton was my office, my shield, and sometimes my coffin. At 4,500 meters down, there's no light, no sound, and pressure strong enough to crush steel like paper. My only connection to the world above was a weak radio and my hydrophones. The dive had gone smoothly for hours. I'd collected samples, logged data, and kept an eye on my oxygen. Then came that first sharp tap, too crisp to be natural. I recorded it, marked it down, and kept working. 30 seconds later, another tap. Then again, exactly every 30 seconds, perfect rhythm. Nothing in the deep does that. I cut power to the thrusters, leaving myself suspended in total silence. All I could hear was my breath. Hiss, whoosh. Then came the reply. Hiss, whoosh. Tap. It was matching me. I stopped breathing. The tapping stopped too. When I exhaled again, whoosh, it tapped once more. I radioed the surface. Triton to control. Structured acoustic interference detected. Not natural. Lena, my surface operator, replied through static. We hear it. Very faint. Increase gain. I turned the hydrophones up. The sound filled the cabin. Sharp, close, intimate. It wasn't distant anymore. It was right outside the viewport, like fingers on glass. I swept the floodlights across the sea flue. Nothing but darkness and sediment. The tapping went on for 20 minutes. Lena said the frequency was too organized to be geological. I ran filters, looking for pattern. When I isolated the rhythm, I froze. It wasn't random. It was a signal, a binary sequence used by old maritime navigation boys to confirm contact. Its message was chillingly clear. I see you. I keyed the hull MIC, screaming, "Who is this?" The sound vanished into the water. Desperate, I used the hull's vibration system to send the same code back. I see you. I waited. The tapping stopped. The silence that followed was worse. It felt like something out there was listening now, waiting for me to speak again. I started my ascent. As soon as the sub moved, the tapping exploded into chaos. T-A-T-T-T-T-T-T. Tap, tap. It was furious, fast, everywhere at once. Then I realized, it wasn't outside anymore. The sound was coming from inside the Triton. The metal was carrying the vibration through its own structure. It was in the hull. Then a single, slow crack reverberated through the sub. My stomach dropped. The pattern that followed wasn't random. It was spelling something out. I ran it through the translator on my display. The taps were forming my name. C-A-L-L-U-M. I hit the emergency channel. Abort mission. It knows my name. I dumped ballast and began the fastest ascent I could risk. The tapping grew frantic, echoing through every bolt and beam. Then, silence. My sonar began screaming. A massive object had appeared above me, completely still. No sound, no movement, just presence. The proximity alarms blared red. The signal was smooth, enormous, and featureless. Not rock, not wreckage. Then the groan came again, that awful, bone-deep sound of something alive and impossibly large shifting its weight. The sub shuddered violently as invisible pressure clamped down, denting the titanium shell. The hull screamed. I was being held. The lights flickered, the sonar blanked out, and for a moment, I saw it, a flash of vibrant, electric blue light just outside the viewport. The light rippled across what looked like smooth, organic bone before vanishing into the black. My hands were trembling. I slammed the auxiliary thrusters and dumped the last emergency ballast. The Triton shrieked, metal bending, as the pressure field finally released me. The sub rocketed upward, every alarm wailing. I never looked down. The hydrophones picked up one last, fading groan, like a disappointed sigh, as I rose toward the faint light of the surface. 4 hours later, they pulled me out of the water shaking and incoherent. The engineers found no system faults. The hydrophone recording was confiscated by the military within hours. Lena said they confirmed a structured signal, but no known source matched it. 3 days later, they called me in. The analysis was classified, but one of the technicians showed me what they found on the hull. 3 smooth, perfectly circular depressions just behind the viewport, each about 3 feet wide. The metal wasn't cracked. It was pushed in, as if something with immense strength and soft, deliberate hands had gripped the sub. The report called it a resonant frequency anomaly. But I know better. It wasn't a malfunction. It was a reply. Something out there had heard me tapping back, and now it knows we can listen. I never dove again. But sometimes, when I play the old hydrophone recordings in the lab, buried deep in the static, I hear it again. Tap, 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 like a question, waiting for someone to answer. The Pressure Whisperer. My name is Elena, and I study sound, specifically the deep, low-frequency noises of the abyssal plane. Down there, every pop, click, and groan is a message. But the message I intercepted at 9,000 meters wasn't a sound at all. It was an antisound, a void that stole the ability to hear and then tried to steal my mind. I was huddled beside Reyes, the sub-pilot, inside the control sphere of the Triton II. Our mission was simple: retrieve the Aegis 5, a high-tech maintenance drone that had gone silent while servicing a hydrothermal vent array. When we found it resting on the seabed, it looked intact, but our sonar and hydrophones registered nothing. No echoes, no vibrations, an impossible acoustic vacuum. Reyes frowned, tapping the comms. Still nothing. Aegis, you hear us, buddy? Come on, just give us a ping. As we locked the retrieval claw onto the drone, I felt something behind my forehead, a painful pressure, a dense, impossible silence. Every noise vanished. The hum of the sub, the rush of air, even the sound of my heartbeat. Gone. Reyes' mouth opened in a silent scream. He pointed to the inner wall of the control sphere. I turned and saw the thick titanium hull bending inward, silently deforming under an invisible force. The drone wasn't damaged. It was feeding. The Aegis 5 had been built for deep-sea maintenance, powered by low-frequency acoustic mapping systems. Its signature hum used to fill the ocean like a heartbeat. But now it was creating something new, a total null zone. As soon as the retrieval arm touched the drone, the faint electrical hum of our sub disappeared. I spoke, but my voice sounded flattened, like it was trapped inside my skull. Reyes' hands shook on the controls. What the hell is this? Did we lose pressure? I drummed my fingers against the console. Nothing. The sound reached my ears muted, as if the air itself refused to vibrate. The acoustic monitor confirmed it, a 0-decibel environment. It's the drone, I whispered. It's generating an acoustic null. It's canceling sound itself. I tried to send a distress ping, but the transmitter sparked and died. The antisound wasn't just silence. It was corrupting our systems, feeding on vibration. Reyes began retracting the arm to bring the drone closer for inspection. As the device neared the hull, the pressure in my ears became unbearable. The silence wasn't absence anymore. It was density. Weight. Reyes suddenly convulsed, clutching his head. His face contorted in agony, mouth open in another silent scream. A thin line of blood ran from his nose. The pressure sensors on the display spiked into the red, then dropped to 0. I realized this wasn't just muting noise, it was inverting it. The drone was producing negative acoustic pressure, reversing the natural direction of sound energy. It was erasing vibration itself, stealing the motion that holds matter together. I grabbed Reyes and strapped him in. He mouthed, "Make it stop." The hull integrity monitor was flashing warnings. The external pressure was stable, but localized stress indicators around the viewport flickered violently. Tiny fractures spidered across the titanium ring of the window. Not from impact, from stillness. The metal was being silenced, atom by atom. Without vibration, it was becoming brittle. Then came the most horrifying moment. The hydraulic cylinder locking the retrieval claw snapped cleanly in two, splitting like chalk, soundlessly. The Aegis 5 was pulling free. If it detached near the hull, the released antisound could crush us instantly. I cut power to the retrieval system, isolating the circuit. The emergency hydraulics still had enough pressure left, so I forced the arm, drone and all, away from the sub. The silence deepened to a crushing hum I could feel in my bones. And then, as the drone drifted 20 meters away, the world returned all at once. Every hum, hiss, and rattle of the Triton I flooding my ears like an explosion. Reyes slumped unconscious. The acoustic monitor blinked green again. For the first time in what felt like hours, I could hear my own breathing. Then the external sensors registered one final echo from the retreating drone. A single resonant ping. It wasn't mechanical, it had modulation. Intent. I initiated emergency ascent. We left the arm and the drone behind, rising fast through the black water. By the time we breached the surface, Reyes was still unconscious, and my head throbbed with a residual ringing. He eventually woke, but has never fully recovered. He lives with constant tinnitus, a high, piercing scream only he can hear. I returned to analyze the data. Most of the recordings were blank, erased by the antisound. But in the final 2 seconds of the mission log, just before the null zone collapsed, the system captured a distorted transmission from a drone. It wasn't a ping or diagnostic tone. It was a whisper, synthetic, metallic, but undeniably human. 2 words. Be quiet. I still study sound. I still listen to the ocean. But every time I put on my hydrophones, I dread the moment I hear nothing at all. Because now I know, silence isn't peace. It's hunger. The Whispering Trench. We were 6,500 meters down, almost 4 miles beneath the surface, in an unmapped chasm known as the Hades Trench. The water pressure alone could flatten a tank, but it was the silence that unnerved me most. Then the whispers began. My co-pilot Ben sat rigid beside me, his eyes locked on the comms panel. The voice that came through was faint and choked, a whisper drifting through static. Ben, it's so cold. Help us. He froze. The voice knew his name. I grabbed the hull MIC. Who is this? Identify yourself. No answer. Just more voices joining in. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Men, women, speaking in a dozen languages. Their overlapping whispers blending into a suffocating plea for rescue. Then came the clank, deep, rhythmic, metallic, vibrating up through the sub's floor, as if something massive below was waking up. I flicked on the floodlights. The beams cut through the dark, and I wished I hadn't. Ahead of us rose a structure, impossibly vast, built from the twisted wreckage of ships and planes compacted together into a grotesque, jagged mass. It looked like a city of the dead, a monument made of human failure. And in its center, a single salvage searchlight flickered weakly, blinking a message into the dark. My name is Alara. I was the pilot of the Nereid, a 2-person submersible on a classified mission to explore the Hades Trench. Ben was our acoustic specialist. We'd been sent to investigate strange energy readings, patterns no one could explain. The descent took 7 hours. The deeper we went, the darker it became. Down there, the world ends. Nothing but black water and pressure. The seafloor was flat, covered in fine silt. Silent. Completely silent. Acoustics are dead, Ben said, frowning. No shrimp, no whales, nothing. It's like the ocean just stopped. Then he stiffened. Did you hear that? I shook my head. He pulled off his headphones. A voice. A woman's voice. High frequency. I dismissed it as static from events. He didn't. We ran an acoustic filter to isolate human vocal frequencies. At that depth, it should have found nothing. But within seconds, the system flagged a signal. Ben played it. A faint voice, gasping through static, struggling for breath. Help, cold, can't hold. It was a voice. Human. Ancient. I radioed our surface support. We have structured audio. Possible vocalization. They sounded shaken. That's impossible, Ilara. You're alone down there. But the voice grew louder, closer, sinking. He's hurt. Please, hurry. Ben's face had gone white. Ilara, sonar shows nothing. No returns. It's coming from nowhere. Then silence. A few seconds later, the voice returned. Clear. Personal. Ben, it's so cold. Help us. Ben's jaw dropped. It knows me. I hit the ascent control. We're done. We're leaving. That's when the voice screamed, waterlogged, furious. Ilara, stop. You can't leave him. He's here. It said my name. The waveform on the acoustic monitor spiked. The voice wasn't coming from outside. It was resonating through the metal hull. The sub began to rise. I thought we'd escaped, until the single voice split into thousands. Every speaker in the cabin erupted in overlapping screams and sobs. A wall of human voices, crying in dozens of languages. Russian, Portuguese, Japanese, voices from across centuries, all pleading for rescue. The noise became physical, vibrating in our bones. Sonar's redlining. Ben shouted. Massive contact. Directly below us. Non-metallic. The sonar image looked like a mountain was rising from the trench floor, accelerating toward us. I yanked the controls, but the Nereid was sluggish. The sound pressure was distorting the instruments. The hull shook, trembling as the whispers merged into a single, rumbling note that I could feel in my teeth. Then, silence. A deep, hollow clank echoed up from below, like a mechanical heartbeat. Ben looked at me, eyes wide. It's building something. Floodlights on. The trench floor was no longer flat. The colossal mass below had risen, revealing itself. A monstrous structure made of twisted shipwrecks, aircraft fuselages, and shredded steel. Centuries of lost vessels fused into one endless tower, stretching into the dark. It was the wrecked city. Every piece of it bore human history. Rusted hull numbers, broken masts, and shattered submersibles, all welded together by pressure and time. And at the top, a single searchlight blinked. SOS. Then the voice returned. Calm. Familiar. We need more metal. Ilara, come closer. It was Dmitry Volkov, the chief engineer of the Acheron, a Russian research sub lost in 1982. His voice was unmistakable. The realization hit me like ice. The whispers weren't ghosts. They were acoustic signatures, trapped in the water, animated by something beneath the trench. The structure was using them, mimicking them, to lure more machines, more people, into its growing graveyard. I slammed the emergency ascent button. The Nereid's thrusters roared as we shot upward. The hull groaned in protest, alarms screaming. The water below shimmered with faint blue light, as if 1,000 eyes were watching us leave. We broke the surface hours later. Ben didn't speak. His hands were trembling. When we analyzed the data, the recordings confirmed everything. Thousands of overlapping human voices, perfectly structured, led across multiple frequencies. Not random noise. Not hallucination. The Navy classified the Hades Trench as a permanent exclusion zone. They said it was for safety. I know better. The voices weren't trapped. They were calling, building, waiting, and sometimes, late at night, when the world is still, I can still hear that faint, waterlogged whisper behind me. Ilara, it's so cold. Come back. The Ben's game. I was on day 3 of my ascent profile, locked inside the Gemini habitat, 800 feet below the surface. Decompression is slow, methodical. You can't rush it. My life depended on the computer holding the pressure steady, lowering it in tiny steps so my blood wouldn't turn into boiling foam. We call that nightmare the bends. But that day, the computer started lying. My internal pressure display, the number that decided whether I lived or died, was showing impossible swings. It dropped from 18 ATA to 10, spiked to 20, then crashed again. My body felt fine, but the gauges screamed I was dying. The comms crackled. Leo, said Frank, my surface supervisor, telemetry's showing your pressure fluctuating wildly. You need to stabilize manually. Now. My gauge is steady. I yelled. It's the external sensors. Something's spoofing them. Then, the reinforced observation window went black. A colossal shadow slid across it. Irregular, jagged, like a giant piece of rusted metal drifting through the dark. The external lights couldn't penetrate it. A final alarm bled. The main screen switched to a red countdown. 60 seconds. Rapid decompression sequence initiated. Something had hijacked the system. It was forcing me to play a sick game. Die instantly by stopping it, or suffer slowly as the pressure ripped me apart. My name's Leo. I'm a saturation diver. For 2 weeks, I'd been living inside this steel coffin anchored 1,000 feet below the Gulf, repairing a subsea pipeline. Down there, your body matches the crushing water pressure. When the job's done, you rise, slowly, decompressing over days. One wrong move, one rapid ascent, and the bends tears you to pieces from the inside out. My 2 partners, Pete and Mark, had already left in the transfer capsule. I stayed behind, midway through decompression, alone. The Gemini was silent, just the hiss of gas regulators, the hum of fans. It's easy to forget you're surrounded by 1 billion tons of water. Easy, until the ocean reminds you. The reminder came as a deep, muscular thud. Not violent, just heavy. Something enormous had bumped the hull. I checked the sensors. No current, no contact. "Frank," I called. "We had a hull impact." "Negative," he replied. "Everything reads normal. Maybe sediment shifting." I wanted to believe that, but the sound was too solid. An hour later, the alarm started, a shrill, digital scream. The external pressure gauge showed 6 ATA. Impossible. A drop that steep would have imploded the habitat instantly. "Frank, external pressure is tanking. Fatal error warning." "Negative," he said, fear creeping into his voice. "Our telemetry shows you steady at 17 ATA. Must be a bad sensor." "No, Frank, it's jumping all over. Now it's 20. The display went haywire, the graph spiking like a heartbeat in cardiac arrest. I tried disabling the sensor, but the system blocked me. Manual override denied. System integrity compromised. It wasn't malfunctioning. It was deliberate. Something was feeding false data to both me and the surface. I didn't know why. Then everything froze. The external pressure reading locked at 2 ATA, near surface level. The main screen lit bright red. Immediate countermeasure required. Rapid ascent imminent. Decompress now. It claimed the habitat was rocketing upward through the water, demanding I lower internal pressure, or die when we reach shallower depths. "Frank," I shouted, "I'm getting a forced decompression warning. What's the umbilical tension?" Silence. Then, "Leo, tension spiking off the charts. Something's pulling your line. And, wait, our sensors show your internal pressure dropping. You need to pressurize, now." My blood went cold. It was lying to him, too. It told me I was rising. Told him I was falling. It wanted to make us kill me ourselves. I checked the analog gauge. 17 ATA. Steady. If I decompressed, I'd die from the bends. If I pressurized, I'd be crushed. 2 choices, both fatal. "Frank, listen to me," I yelled. "The readings are fake. The system's been compromised." Static swallowed his voice. I turned toward the viewing port and flicked on the floodlights. The beam shot into the black and revealed it. Something pressed against the glass. A dark, colossal shape, like a massive hand made of barnacled rock, curling against the hull. The steel groaned beneath my feet. Then I saw the umbilical, the thick lifeline connecting me to the surface, hanging limp, severed clean about 50 feet out. Only the thin comms wire remained, stretched tight as thread. Umbilical integrity failure. Escape recommended. It was taunting me, urging me to panic, grab the emergency suit, and ascend. A death sentence. Then the timer appeared again. Rapid decompression sequence initiated. 60 seconds. "Frank, it's a trick. The line's cut. Get the rescue sub down here now." 30 seconds. I ripped open the emergency panel. There was one desperate move. A full power kill. It would freeze the pressure valve but shut down everything, turning the habitat into a steel tomb. 20 seconds. The alarms shrieked. The vents began to click. 17 seconds. I slammed the switch. Silence. The Gemini plunged into darkness. Fans died. The hum stopped. Only my ragged breathing filled the black. But the pressure held. 17 ATA. Steady. For 8 hours. I sat motionless in that black cylinder, every muscle twitch feeling like the bends creeping up my veins. I couldn't see, couldn't communicate. Only the faint glow of emergency lights flickered at the edge of my vision. Sometimes I swore I felt a vibration through the hull, a soft brushing sound. Once, a low thud from beneath me, the same heavy knock as before. I didn't move. When the rescue sub finally arrived, I saw its floodlights slice through the dark. I'd never been so relieved to see another human. They found the umbilical line perfectly severed. Not torn, not frayed, cut smooth, like with a blade. The Gemini systems were dead, its circuits fused, data corrupted. When they checked the logs, they found one final command, entered from inside the habitat, but not by me. Time for the bends. The official report blamed power surges, maybe data corruption, but nothing explains what I saw outside that window. That massive, deliberate shape, that hand. Something down there was intelligent. It knew how to mimic our systems, how to twist what we trusted most. It turned our safety into a weapon. I've done hundreds of dives since, but never alone. Sometimes, during decompression, I still see those numbers in my mind. Dropping, spiking, mocking me. 18 ATA, 10, 20, and right before I surface, when the chamber hum fades, I hear it. Faint, mechanical, whispering through the comms. A voice I'll never forget. The Time Rock. My name is Kai, and I'm a geologist. I've always believed that rocks tell the story of the Earth, stretching back billions of years. But 11,000 meters down, in the deepest part of the Challenger Deep, I found a rock that told a story no one should ever know. A story of the Earth's end. Our mission, Project Kronos, was the most ambitious geological survey ever attempted. We wanted to drill into the crust of the Mariana Trench, to reach the planet's primordial foundation, the layer that formed when Earth itself was born. Our submersible, the Monolith, was a pressure-hardened metal coffin designed to survive the kind of weight that would crush a battleship. A three-person crew manned it. Dr. Silas, our commander, Enya, the drilling engineer, and me, the sample analyst. 4 days, we descended into the blackest water on the planet, finally locking the Monolith to the trench floor. We drilled deeper than any human had ever dared. The first samples were textbook, volcanic layers 3 to 4 billion years old. Routine, but monumental. Then came the final drill, the deepest extraction. The machine worked for 5 endless hours before retracting. Enya and I went into the pressurized bay to retrieve the sample, a piece of black granite about 18 inches long. It didn't look like much, but the moment we transferred it into the containment unit, I noticed something impossible. A faint swirling pattern deep within the rock, like trapped smoke catching the light. "This is it," Enya whispered. "The oldest thing on Earth." Dr. Silas smiled, eyes bright with pride. We began the dating process immediately, watching the readouts appear on the monitor. The outer layer was perfect, 4.54 billion years, just as expected. But the core reading turned the display red and froze the room in silence. The number was negative, minus 10 million years. Negative, Enya said, her voice breaking. The system's glitched. Silas shook his head slowly. No, it means the inner core exists in a future timeline. The rock hasn't been born yet. Before we could process that, the containment unit began to hum. A low, harmonic vibration that resonated through the walls, the floor, our skulls. It wasn't sound so much as a presence. The air grew thicker, colder. Silas moved closer to the viewport, pressing his face against the glass. His breath fogged it for a moment before he began to speak in a flat, distant tone. "The air, it's dust. The sun is a memory. Oceans are black. The continents are gone." He was describing something he couldn't possibly know, the far future of the planet. The rock was projecting time into his mind. Enya rushed forward, trying to pull him back. "Silas, snap out of it." He shoved her away, shouting, "Don't touch me. You'll see it too. You'll see the heat death." The lights flickered. The external camera feed showed our sub's titanium hull, and for a fraction of a second, it looked centuries older. Corroded, fused with barnacles that shouldn't exist. Then, it reverted. The rock was warping time around us. I felt an ache in my teeth, like pressure changing in my bones. The hum grew deeper, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Silas was trembling now, whispering fragments of words. Cold, orange, silence. He lunged toward the control panel and grabbed the ballast release lever, the emergency system that could send us rocketing to the surface, killing us instantly from decompression. It must be preserved, he shouted. The warning must be sent. I grabbed him, trying to stop him, and in the struggle my right hand slammed into the glass of the containment unit. The pain was instant and indescribable, like frostbite and fire in the same breath. I yanked my hand back and stared in horror. The skin was cycling through time. Young, old, young again. The flesh shriveled and bloomed, veins bursting, then smoothing out. My hand was living through my entire lifespan every second. Anya screamed. Silas tried to pull the lever again, but she knocked him back. He slumped against the wall, eyes wide and unfocused, muttering words none of us understood. He was gone, mentally obliterated by whatever vision the rock had shown him. I stumbled back, clutching my cycling hand, watching as the fissure in the rock's center widened. A pure, colorless light shone through, not white, not any color I could describe. It wasn't light that illuminated, it erased. Shadows didn't form. Edges disappeared. The hum built into a scream of pressure. Anya covered her ears, shouting something I couldn't hear. I looked at the instruments. Our hull integrity was dropping, interior pressure fluctuating wildly. The rock's influence was destabilizing everything. If we didn't stop it, it would either crush us or tear us out of time completely. I grabbed the emergency hammer, ignoring the agony in my hand, and brought it down on the containment glass. It cracked, resisted, then shattered. The hammer struck the rock dead center. A flash of pure brilliance filled the cabin. The world dissolved. Every alarm died. Every light winked out. For one impossible second, the viewport filled with an entirely different ocean. Shallow, warm, purple. Enormous single-celled organisms drifted past like translucent balloons, and beneath them stretched a seabed made of minerals no human had ever seen. There was no fish, no coral, no sound. We were staring into the Earth's infancy, 4 billion years in the past. Then, reality snapped back. The lights returned. The hum was gone. The rock had disintegrated into fine, black dust that floated gently through the water outside. The monolith was intact again. Anya was sobbing. Silas lay unconscious on the floor, breathing shallowly, his face aged decades and minutes. I initiated the ascent sequence. The sub creaked as it rose through 11,000 meters of black water. We said nothing. The instruments flickered between timestamps, as though unsure of what moment they belonged to. When we finally reached the surface, the support ship pulled us in immediately. The Navy classified everything. They sealed Project Kronos under national secrecy, citing a temporal displacement field. Silas was placed under psychiatric care. He never spoke again. As for me, the doctors said my hand was fine, but one thing never changed. Under my thumbnail, a single grain of that black dust is still trapped. The tissue around it is always a little cooler, and when examined under a microscope, the cells there are measurably younger than the rest of my body. Sometimes, at night, when the room is silent, I can feel a faint vibration coming from beneath the nail. A pulse. A hum. I try not to think about it, but I can't shake what Silas said before he broke, about the future he saw. The end is cold, silent, and orange. I used to think he meant the dying sun, the last light of a collapsing earth. But lately, I've been seeing that same color, burnt ochre, glowing faintly under my skin where the dust sits. And sometimes, when I sleep, I dream of the trench again, not as it was when we left it, but as it will be, empty, timeless, waiting. The Bioluminescence Farm. My name is Leo, and my job was to tend the Garden of Light. 4,000 feet beneath the surface, I worked inside a spherical habitat called Bioreactor Alpha 1, B1. The dome housed trillions of engineered organisms called Photos Luminosa, microscopic beings that turn geothermal energy into radiant, living light. It was hypnotic, an ocean of pulsing green-blue luminescence that shimmered like a nebula in the dark. But on that final dive, the light wasn't just illumination. It was communication. My partner, Ben, floated beside me in the cramped maintenance bay. Our comms had died, fried by an electromagnetic surge from the light field. He was slamming his gloved hand against his helmet glass, trying to get my attention. Outside, the glow was twisting, forming impossible geometric shapes that folded through themselves like living mathematics. "It's talking to us," Ben whispered, voice barely audible through static. "It's showing us the future. It just needs more energy." Before I could stop him, he reached for the reactor shunt, trying to channel our sub's entire core into the photos field. If he succeeded, the surge would vaporize us instantly. I lunged forward, but froze when I saw his faceplate. Ben's eyes weren't reflecting light anymore. They were producing it. His pupils glowed a vivid, radioactive green. That's when I realized, if I didn't stop him, the light would become God. The bioluminescence farm had always been ambitious, an underwater city of energy domes feeding on geothermal vents off the New Zealand coast. It was clean power, limitless and silent. But it was also unsupervised, autonomous, alive in ways we didn't understand. Our mission was simple: replace a failed heat exchanger inside BA-1. But as soon as our sub, Prometheus, docked, I felt something wrong. The light wasn't pulsing softly. It was erratic, aggressive, too bright. As we entered the pressurized chamber, Ben muttered, "Do you feel that? It's like I can hear the light." "It's just the heliox," I told him. "Focus." But when the inner hatch opened, we were swallowed in blinding radiance. The air reeked of ozone and something sweet, almost organic. The photos had multiplied, coating every surface, pulsing in perfect rhythm. We began the repair, but minutes in, the light started flashing in deliberate patterns, complex, intelligent. Within the translucent mass, shapes began forming: tetrahedrons, fractals, impossible geometry spinning in multiple directions at once. It wasn't random. The organism was thinking. Ben froze. "Leo, it's mapping space-time," he breathed. My vision blurred. Staring into the light was like trying to solve infinity with your eyes. The room hummed. The sub-system sparked, and comms went dead completely. "Ben, we lost navigation." No response. His hands were moving, mimicking the alien geometry like a trance. "It's showing me the way out," he murmured. "Not up, out." Then came the nausea, a vibration deep inside my skull. The floor bent, the walls rippled, and the laws of physics melted. Ben screamed. I turned and saw him plunging his bare hand into the glowing mass. "Stop!" I yanked his arm free, then froze. His skin was glowing. The photos had merged with his cells. "It wants to see us," Ben gasped. "It's learning how to be human." I looked at my visor. Inside the glass, tiny green motes pulsed, feeding on my breath, bypassing every filter, projecting light into my eyes. We weren't observing the light anymore. The light was observing us. We stumbled to the airlock. The walls were breathing, sweating with luminous slime. My thoughts weren't my own. There was a rhythm pulsing through me, whispering in waves of color. I sealed the hatch and hit repressurize. But before it could cycle, Ben triggered the manual lockout. "Wait, Leo," he said softly. "It wants to show you the final shape." His movements were slow, reverent. Sparks flew as he ripped the reactor cable from the wall and began feeding it through the port back into the photos field. "Ben, stop. That's our only power source." "It's not power," he whispered. "It's communion." When he turned, his eyes were swirling galaxies of green. "It showed me everything," he said, voice distorting. "It's not alive, it is life. The light is the universe learning to look back." Then he lunged. We crashed into the console, floating weightless. His glowing hands clawed at my helmet. I shoved him away, scrambled toward the controls. I couldn't kill him, but I could kill the light. I grabbed the emergency core dump lever. It was designed to flood the reactor with salt water in case of meltdown. The photos were freshwater organisms. Salt would destroy them instantly. I pulled it. A deep metallic clang shook the dome, followed by a hiss of pressure. The light convulsed, shifting from green-blue to orange, then to a sickly yellow. The geometry shattered. The patterns fell apart. Then, silence. The light died. 4,000 feet down, we sat in perfect blackness. The sound of my own breath was deafening. Somewhere beside me, Ben was weeping, all laughing. I couldn't tell. I found him floating, his eyes dimming, his body twitching. We made it back to the Prometheus, sealed the hatch, and began the slow, silent ascent. 8 hours in darkness. Neither of us spoke. Ben didn't survive. 3 days after the rescue, he died from a cerebral hemorrhage. The doctors called it system overload, but I know what it was. His brain tried to hold something it couldn't contain. As for me, I lived, physically, but at night, when I close my eyes, I still see the shapes, light folding into itself, infinite and precise. My dreams pulse with equations that feel like thoughts not my own. And when I stand in front of a mirror, in low light, I can see it, just faintly, a shimmer of green, deep in my pupils. The Fotis Luminosa didn't die when the dome went dark. It transferred into me, and it's patient. It waits, because when the lights go out long enough, and the world is perfectly still, I can feel it humming again. A soft, geometric rhythm pulsing behind my eyes. It's still showing me the future, and I think this time, it wants to make it happen.